Hey, what up? It's your boy coming back to the Mewtwo Shrine once again, just to get a quick little follow-up the night after the Feast of Mewtwo. Um, Quick few things that I wish I included on the initial video, kind of going over this, that I forgot about, and some other thoughts that came up after the fact that I felt like sharing. So, hey, here we go. Yes, here we are at the Mewtwo Shrine. The first thing to bring up is I realized I used to have a Meowth plush as part of the plush set. I don't know where those went to. Might be with my brother. Don't know. But those used to exist. There used to be one more that was here. Minor little discrepancy. I meant to kind of go in more into depth about like the choice of these 6 Pokemon for the golden cards. Now, most of y'all will probably look at these and kind of skim over them and think, oh, like these are pretty no-brainer choices, and that's correct. Like, okay, obviously, like you have Pikachu, the iconic mascot. Togepi in the anime, some of you might know, was kind of like a secondary mascot for the hero team. It was like and on top of that, it was a new Generation 2 Pokemon that was appearing early, kind of as like a little Easter egg to the generation to come. And so, like, yeah, had this like kind of like I said, quasi mascot iconic status. Mewtwo, of course, he's like just the powerhouse, like the final boss of all Pokemon, at least in Gen 1, and still kind of holds that status. Charizard, he's the unofficial official mascot, right? Like, Pikachu's the one, but everyone loves Charizard. That's just he's the iconic one. And Jigglypuff, right? So a little iffier there. So like those of you who are more in the know, perhaps, right, might know that the Pokemon Company initially were hoping for Clefairy, which is very similar to Jigglypuff in some regards, to be the main mascot rather than Pikachu. But they ended up going for Pikachu instead. I think in part because they thought Clefairy would be too female focused, and they wanted something a little more like gender neutral appeal. I think they actually thought that Pikachu would be too appealing to just the female audience or something. Might be remembering that wrong. Regardless, so Jigglypuff is kind of like that, but I think the reason Jigglypuff got so big was its prominent role in the anime. It became very like a recurring kind of side character that would come around every once in a while, and so it became very popular that way. And with that popularity, yeah, like you can just tell, like, okay, like these four right here, like everyone knows these are like the big Gen 1 people. They're the Gen 1 people that show up in Smash Brothers, right? Minus Ivysaur and Squirtle, but they're kind of, little side additions of sorts. Like Charizard's the main star of that group. But then we have Poliwhirl down here. What the heck is with Poliwhirl? Now, those of you who weren't around when Gen 1, like when Pokemon was first popping off in the cultural zeitgeist of America, like, might not know that Poliwhirl was like, he's just like one of the biggest advertising mascots of Pokemon in a way. Like, he was just everywhere. You saw him on, like, every time there was just like a handful of Pokemon like sprayed onto some image, it was always like Pikachu, maybe Bulbasaur, Charizard, Jigglypuff, Mewtwo, and Poliwhirl, and Gengar. And Gengar was like one of the favorites of the company as well. So you saw a lot of Gengars, and he still is quite popular. So that's understandable. But like, yeah, like, why? What is up with that? Now, as I understand it, Poliwhirl is the creator of Pokemon, Satoshi Tajiri's favorite Pokemon. It's his favorite design that's come out of the whole bunch. So he always had a special place in his heart. On top of that, he was kind of put like that status and that position kind of put him in a place where he was. Seems like they almost wanted him to be a special mascot, like kind of akin to Jigglypuff's level of popularity, even though he never quite made it to the point where. So in the Pokemon Adventures manga, which is Pokemon Adventures, is sort of a more faithful to the games comic adaptation of the Pokemon story. It follows the story of the games more closely than the Adventures of Ash Ketchum in the anime did, for example. The Ash stand-in, I say stand-in, it's more like this is the character that was from the games that Ash is based on, but that main character, Red, his first Pokemon was a Poliwhirl. He didn't get his starter Pokemon until a little while after, he got a Bulbasaur. So, yep, like he was just always meant to be that thing, and it just, as soon as Gen 2 came around, Poliwhirl's prominence on the advertising and just in the zeitgeist faded away. And I think it just because everyone sort of noticed that, like, it was kind of like a stop trying to make Poliwhirl thing. Why is there, like, people like them, but he just was never that big. But you would think, based on all the advertising back then, that he was just one of the main faces. You think he'd be as popular as Jigglypuff or Charizard at some point. So yeah, there you go. That's your Poliwhirl lore. Um, Not really much to it other than just like they just planned for him to be more prominent, and he just sort of faded to the background eventually. And last, while we're over here, little this is not going to be as interesting, I'm sure, but looking at our Mewtwo sets here, I talked about the Shadow Ball, and I got to thinking, even though it's really strange that Mewtwo would have had Shadow Ball in the movie and like make that like such a prominent feature for him when that wasn't a move in the games yet. A few things. Number one, I wonder if that was a move that was cut out of the Gen 1 games, because most of the Pokemon that ended up in Gen 2 were, not most, but like a lot of them that did end up in Gen 2 were like already made and sort of planned. Like a lot of them were meant to go in Gen 1 and got cut out early and then moved to Gen 2. Maybe a bunch of moves did. Maybe Shadow Ball was one of them. Maybe they knew Gen 2 was coming soon and they were working on it, so they got antsy. They're like, yeah, there's a little Easter egg too. And yeah, he learns it by TM, but like again, it's a TM move for him in Gen 2. Like he doesn't learn it naturally, so it's such an odd thing. But it does make a lot of sense, because especially in Gen 1 context, and Gen 2 kind of too, but especially in Gen 1 context, what are Mewtwo's weaknesses? Psychic and Bug, and that's basically it. And bug type moves, you have like Leech Life, Pin Missile, Twin Needle, and those are all just weak sauce, and they can only be used by pretty weak things. Like Mewtwo is not gonna like Twin Needles on a Beedrill, right? And Leech Life on a Zubat and stuff like that. Mewtwo's not gonna have a problem with those. They're part Poison type. Psychic beats Poison, wipes them clean. But then Jolteon is the only one I could think of that could use Pin Missile maybe effectively against Mewtwo, but like how he doesn't have same type advantage to it. He doesn't have like he's got speed. Like I don't think his attack is gonna be that good to actually do much against a Mewtwo with Pin Missile. I could be wrong. I'm not like the expert on like the battle stuff. I'm more of like a lore and background knowledge kind of guy, but so with that in mind, if Jolteon does prove effective, which hey, like I always love Jolteon, so like would it be so weird to have Jolteon on a team? Like what weirdo would? This weirdo would. I always liked having him around. I can easily see a case where like yeah, Mewtwo would want that Shadow Ball and use it on Mew, for example, in the movie, because he knew, okay, like Mew is weak to Ghost, and I have a Ghost move, so here we go. Yeah, and sadly Mewtwo can't learn any ground type moves in Gen 1, so he would have been just, going based on pure raw power when he's trying to going against a Jolteon, I guess. But like again, I don't think that would be an issue for him. I think he'd be fine. So I don't know. Yeah, I don't know. It's a interesting thought. I can see some logic behind it. I can imagine why Shadow Ball would be chosen, especially in a fight against Mew. Don't know. But so anyways, all that to lead up to another big point here. So all this obsession on Mewtwo here, right? You'd think David's the Mewtwo guy. He loves Mewtwo. It's his favorite Pokemon. No, actually, not at all. I mean, well, he's up there, but let me do a quick awkward jump cut to the table of poor view, and we'll talk about that. One moment. All right, welcome back over here. So as I said, was getting at, I suppose, Mewtwo is not my favorite Pokemon. I do have a favorite. Now here's the tricky thing, and I'm still trying to work out how to explain this exactly to myself, let alone to you, the viewer. I have too many favorites. It's like there's a large collection of Pokemon that I just really, really like, and I want to call them my favorites. Some are probably closer to the favorite line than others, and I'll talk about that. But there is one favorite. There is one favorite, and the best way I can think to describe it is I have one favorite, and then a bunch that are tied for second place, and I don't know how to choose from among them or rank them accordingly, because I love them all so differently and so much. Some of these that I have some examples here. Some of these maybe didn't need to be in this group. Maybe they belonged in like the third place tie group, but like I'll point out the ones that I'm like really gung ho about, and yeah, that'll be made clear, I think. So yeah, like Mewtwo does indeed fit in that second place category. I love him dearly. When we watched the movie, some comparisons to Shadow the Hedgehog were made, which yes, but here's some others that I do deeply love. Ammonites, bam. Praise Helix, bam. There's our guy. Porygon, I love Porygon, and I want to love Porygon 2 and Porygon Z more, but I love Porygon. He's very cool. Giratina, the Dark Lord himself. Look at him go. Yeah. Arceus, bam. Double bam. Wabam. Arceus, god of the Pokemon world. Focus in, camera. We love Arceus in this house. We are proud supporters of Arceus. Sorry, that camera sucks, and also it doesn't help that like the covers on these the sleeves are kind of matte, so they don't come across very well. Oh yeah, wabam! Extra Arceus action. There we go. Look at that absolute majesty. Isn't that delightful? We love Arceus here. Darkrai. Yeah. It's weird because like every time I forget about him a lot, but like I love Darkrai, and every time I see him again, I remember, oh, he's so cool. Like look at this emo loser with his swoopy hair, and he's such an edgelord. I love him so much. Yeah, and shoot, even so, Deoxys. So for a very long time, like up until very recently, like Deoxys was my favorite, like absolute favorite. And he's still very high regard for me. So, he's definitely up there, probably with Porygon and Darkrai and Ammonite, like and Arceus. Yeah, like I'm struggling to try to sort through these in a way that like I can rank them, but these are all I love them so much. Rayquaza, especially Mega Rayquaza here, right? Man, yeah, like he has a very he's one that like, man, he's so cool, but like he might also belong in the tier below. Yeah, hard to say. It's definitely hard to say. Now, I don't know if you know this about me, but I really love bats. I love bats. And so I have a very special place in my heart for good old, Zubat, good old Golbat, and I love the color purple. So would you believe that Crobat is the best thing ever? Because he sure is, and there he is with my favorite like main character from the games, Silver. It like perfect harmony for me right here. And I love dragons. I've for a long while I would have said dragon type was my favorite type. Iffy now, but I still do like dragons, especially like wyvern type dragons. So are you telling me there's a bat wyvern Pokemon, Noivern? That's so freaking cool. He's awesome. I wish I knew more about him because I kind of dropped off at Gen 6. I need to get back in it just for Noivern. He's so cool. Speaking of edgelords with emo swoops, your boy Absol. Absolutely. Yeah, he's edgy, he's silly, he's cool. Mega Absol has a really cool look to him. He's got like the emo, like fairy, or not fairy, emo angel kind of like vibe about him. I love it. Sigilif, I like him. I don't know what it is. I like him. And same kind of vibe like Shiftry. I like him. I've always liked Shiftry for some reason, and I just don't really know why, and I don't really talk about it much. Sableye. Very similar vibes. I just don't talk about him much, but I love this little gremlin. He's purple. He looks valuable. He's ghost type, which I think is my favorite type now. And very, very recently, I've fallen in love with Litwick. Emo little candle hair swoop, little wax drippings over his eye. He's a little ghost type candle, ghost fire. Like, he is adorable. I don't know. Like, I definitely was sleeping on Litwick for a while and overlooked him, but found him, and here we are. Love it. And this one, man, this is close. Like, this easily could be the favorite. Hisuian Zoroark. And man, oh man, I wish the camera would focus. Hisuian Zoroark is so cool. He's so cool. I think about him more than I need to. Um, yeah, I man, it's tough when things like him exist, but there is a one out of the bunch that is like the cream of the crop, the the cream the cream that rises to the top. There is one, and which of the team is it really? Which is the one favorite? It's Drowsy. It's Drowsy, boys. I love Drowsy. Now, you might look at these cards that I'm showing you here and ask, so then David, you must have a lot of Drowsy merchandise, right? You love Drowsy so much. Well, actually, before I even ask that, David, why Drowsy? Well, let me tell you. Look at him. Look at him. He's very tired. He's got a goofy little tapir snoot. We love tapirs. Tapirs are adorable. And he's, like I said, very, very tired, just like me. And he's got a big belly full of dreams. He's perfect. Seriously, the Pokemon that, like, if I had a partner Pokemon in real life, the like, realistically, like, a lot of the more kind of extreme Pokemon, like maybe Hisuian Zoroark or like Arceus, for example, like wouldn't be as reasonable to have. It would be a toss up between Drowsy and Porygon, because like Porygon's like, just keep him like on my computer, whatever, right? But Drowsy, like, I think he'd be practical. He'd be a little, just a goofy little bro to hang around. He would help me sleep at night and eat my nightmares for me, as Dream Eaters do. Like, this is the one for me. How did I like fall into that? I don't know. I just kind of noticed those qualities about him one day, and I was like, I love him, and I think I've always loved him since like Pokemon Stadium came out for some reason, and I just loved the way he moved and like wiggled his fingers and the way he danced in the anime and like the Orange Islands series or wherever he showed up, and yeah, fell in love with that. And you might ask, like, so you love Drowsy so much, so how much Drowsy merchandise do you have to support that love? Because I say I fell in love with him a little more recently, so to speak, but it wasn't that recently. It was probably like a decade ago here now at this point. But so yeah, what about that? Well, I have nothing, as it turns out. I have zero Drowsy merchandise, zero Drowsy plushes, zero Drowsy figurines, zero Drowsy pins or paraphernalia. Nothing, because no one has loved me enough to get me anything Drowsy related as of this time. It's which, I know there's a few people out there that do know I like Drowsy, but I also think there's a lot of people that never asked and don't know that. There is one technical exception. One person did purchase me a Hypno pin, which is a Drowsy merchandise by extension, right? Which who you are. That makes him perhaps he makes him truly a real one. Perhaps arguably realist one. Hard to confirm, but very possibly. So that is the closest thing we got, which is nothing to sneeze at. Don't get me wrong. Now that I brought up Drowsy's evolution Hypno, one might be obliged to ask, David, how do you address the Hypno allegations, and how does that make you feel in light of your affiliation with Drowsy? To which I say, no comments, and perhaps a subject for a later time. Until further action is taken, I advise you to speak to my lawyer, and that'll be it. Actually, it will not be it. Ha, liar. Let's wheel awkwardly back onto the shrine for a final note. This has gone on long enough, right? The final note is, why is Pokemon the first movie so important to me still, that I, even with Drowsy as my favorite Pokemon, that I would go all the way to do all this? The first and biggest reason is because it's a funny bit. I do it for the bit. Double down, never give up the bit. The secondary, though, I suppose, is that it did have a large impact on me. I still love Mewtwo to this day. I love that movie to this day, and I keep all this merchandise to this day, obviously. So it clearly had, a nostalgic impact on me, but it also had a major impact on the path of my life in a lot of ways. Because when I saw Pokemon the first movie in the, late fall, early winter of 1999, I that was my first introduction to genetics, to the idea of genetics and DNA and what that means, what that does in the body, in the biological systems. The idea that there's a molecule that codes everything about you and makes you up you are. That captured my imagination, and so that led me down a path towards studying genetics. I didn't really get to that exactly, but that's, I went to college. I got really focused on like math and science in high school, and when I went to college, when I went to U of M, I studied biophysics in the end, which is kind of tangentially related. It was still in that kind of biosciences field, and there were definitely like genetics and genetic material involved in all that. So that led me down that path, which in turn means that a chemistry job that I had after the fact would be like a chemistry, like biochemistry kind of adjacent field job that was directly because of going to college and taking that kind of career path, right? So anyone who met me at that job arguably knows me because of this movie. In addition, going to U of M is where I started researching Christianity and its history more in depth, read the early church fathers, and met some people that would give me my first rosary and have some serious conversations about Catholicism, and all of which, were kind of like the first dominoes tumbling towards me converting to Catholicism. So people that have met me through the Catholic Church and things like that and know me through those connections, and everything that I've done in that context so far, in a lot of ways, one could argue, it's because of Pokemon the first movie. Funny how that works out, right? So, I know this is a long talk. I apologize, guys. I meant this to be like 10 minutes tops, and here we are at 22-minute mark, but hope this was a informative, if not mildly entertaining thing to listen to in the background or watch on the side. Get to it when you can, that kind of stuff. Well, you're at the end of the video. You already got to it. So thanks for sticking around. As always, best to you. I hope you have a wonderful 2026. See y'all.